In today's video, we will be looking at how to deploy a DDVE on GCP. DDVE or Data Domain Virtual Edition is a virtual deduplication appliance that provides data protection for entry, enterprise, and service provider environments. Like any other data domain system, DDVE is also paired with a backup software. When we go to the support site and download the DDVE, you get a .zip file. If you go ahead and uncompress the .zip file, you're going to get three files out of it. The two files are for the deployment on Linux as well as on Windows, and the third file here, which is a tar.gz, is a raw image of the DDV disk, which we will be using to create a GCP custom image. Let's go ahead and do that now. The first step here is to upload the tar.gz file that we have downloaded from the support site to cloud storage. So you can do this either by using the gsutil command line, or you can use the Google Cloud Platform console. So if we go to the console, I've already uploaded this file, so let me show this to you. So I have placed this in a bucket called DDVE staging, and once you open this bucket, you will see the tar.gz list. Alright, once you have the DDVE image on your cloud storage, the next step would be to create a custom image. For this, you can use if you have installed the Google Cloud SDK on your local machine, you can use a local machine to create the custom image for the DDVE, or else you can use the cloud console as well. So first, let's go ahead and see if all the information on the SDK or the local CLI is set properly. Yes. Let's go ahead and check the cloud storage bucket as well. Okay, everything looks good. So now let's use the gcloud compute command to create our custom image. Just create, give it a name. You can include the version as well. I think the version that I have is let's see, it's 62035. So let's give it that name. So this is just to make sure that if you have multiple versions of custom disk images created, you can differentiate between them. Next, since we are using the disk image which is on the storage Google Cloud Storage, you have to use the source URI as the full path to the image, and then hit enter. This is going to take a while, so I'm going to pause the video here and continue when the image is created. Alright, if you see that see the screen now, you will see that the image is created. The details are provided here. The name of the image, the project which is part of. We have not provided any family or family details, so this is blank, and the status is ready. So the next step would be to deploy a new DDVE compute VM using this custom image, and for this we will be using one of the two scripts that were provided with the initial download. Before we proceed with that, I would like to show you the requirements of the virtual machine that we are going to build. Some configuration requirements for a DDVE on GCP. So you need a 4-core CPU, a 16 gig memory, also 250 GB standard persistent disk. This is to store your DDoS, as well as a 10 gig SSD persistent disk for NVRAM. The storage capacity, the maximum storage capacity for DDVE on GCP is 16 TB, and we do have a trial version of the DDVE that you can use for any amount of time, which is limited to 500 GB. So that is what we will be working with. Also, if in case you're wondering how much this particular DDVE would cost you, you can always go to the GCP price calculator and find out how much this particular setup would cost you on a monthly basis, that is. Alright, let's now go ahead and deploy our GCP. Let's see if we are in the right directory. We are not. So let's go to the right directory. Before going ahead with the deployment, let's just collect all the information that we require. We need the zone in which we are going to deploy the DDVE, the name of your VPC, the name of your subnet, the name of your project. So let's go ahead and collect this information first. So let's go with the projects first. So we will be using this particular project for this deployment. Next, let's just check the zones. I am going to use something in Asia. Oops. All right. Next, let's see what net VPCs are available. We will be using this VPC for our deployment. Next, just let's see what subnets are available, and we will need only the subnets for the VPC that we are going to use. So there you have it. So this is our subnet. This will be our VPC. Asia South. Let's say A will be our zone where we will be deploying the DDVE, and the project is going to be playground. So let's go ahead and build the command. So we have the deploy on Linux command. We give the -n switch for the name of the DDVE. Let's name it DDVE demo for now. Whatever name we are going to choose here will be the name of your VM, which is in turn going to be the host name of your data domain. Next, we provide the name of our image, which I think we have not gotten here. Okay, let's just get the image name as well. Compute images list. Let me grab for DDVE. Alright, now we have all the information. Let's go ahead. Bash deploy on Linux. Name will be DDVE demo. Image file would be this one. My zone is going to be this one. My VPC is this one. My subnet is going to be this one. My project is going to be this project ID. Voila. So the script is ultimately going to deploy the, not exactly deploy, but create all the VM images. It is going to create a VM image. It is going to create two persistent disk, one standard persistent disk for the DDoS, to which it is going to import the image to. This is basically from the image that we have downloaded from EMC, and the other is for NVRAM, which is a 10 gig SSD persistent disk. I'm going to go ahead and pause this video and get back to you when the deployment is completed. Alright, so if you see the summary, the deployment is complete. The name of your DDVE is DDVE demo, 4 cores, memory is 16 gig. The capacity is 16 TB, which is the maximum capacity available on GCP. There's the image name, project name, so on and so forth. This is the private IP address. Let's go to the Google Cloud Console and see how this image, how this VM looks like. There you have it. At the moment, this is the only um, uh, virtual machine that I have in this project. I'm going to do one change which you would not want to do. I'm going to add an external IP address to this because I don't have a jump server configured, but when you're doing this in production, please do not add any public IP address. So I'll be doing this external IP address to ephemeral, and I say done. I'm going to do one more thing here which you would also have to do, that is adding the disks to your DDV virtual machine. So the minimum disk capacity that you can add is 500 gigs, but EMC recommends you add increments of the disks at least 2 TB. So if you are using a 16 TB capacity, it is recommended you add 8 2 TB disks. So this will help to give you an optimal performance on this DDVE. So what we will be doing is we will be adding a 500 gig disk because that is the maximum free tier capacity that is allowed. Since I'm not going to apply any license to this, let me go ahead and do that. So I will be keeping the disk as a standard persistent disk. Google managed key. I'm going to keep everything else default and done. Now I'm going to go ahead and save the configuration. So my DDV is updated and ready. If you see, I have an external IP assigned as well, but this is strictly for demo. On production, please do not enable the external IP address because you have to keep your DDVE bound within the internal network of your GCP for security. If you look at the disks, we have 3 disks now. So one is the 250 gig standard disk, which is from the image file. And then we have NVRAM, and then the 500 gig disk that we have recently added. Alright, let's go ahead and connect to the DDVE to go through the initial configurations. We will be doing this through the command line, and I will be going through the entire cycle again to show you how to deploy the DDVE using the Google Cloud Console, which is uh, a little more time consuming because you have to go ahead and select all the options. But yeah, it is always good to know 2 ways of doing one task. So first, let's go ahead and connect to our newly created DDVE. Now let's go ahead and connect to this new DDVE virtual instance that we have created. First, let's go ahead and list out the instances. Instance, oops, instances list. Okay, next I'll use the SSH option and connect to this. Okay, the password should be change me, which it is not taking. Oh, I forgot to do one thing. We're supposed to mention the username. Okay, there you go. First, we have to accept the ELA. Go ahead, done. Press any key to then hit enter to acknowledge. Enter a new password. So let me enter a new password. This is our sysadmin password. So there are two options. Do you want to configure system using GUI wizard, which we do not, the network configuration? We will say yes, we want to do the network configuration. So in my setup, I am using a DHCP, but in your case, you would have to reserve an internal IP address from your subnet range and assign that particular IP address to your server. So here we are setting up the DNS. So I am going to ask the data domain to pick everything from the DHCP. So yes. Ethernet port enable, yes. So I'm going to use the DHCP. So this is the summary of all the information that I have selected. This is the IP address which will be applied to it. I'll go ahead and save this information. So next is regarding the licenses. Again, I am going to use the demo version, so I am not going to apply any license here. But if you are using this production, obviously you have to add a license here. So you can go ahead and say yes and apply the license to your DDVE here. So let me go ahead with no. System configuration. So system configure system at this time. Yes, I want to configure the system at this time. Assign a host name, so I say DDVE demo. Next, an admin email address. So let me give it an admin email address. Okay. System location. Let me give a location. SMTP server configuration if you have any. And if you want to put it in a particular time zone, you can update that here. So once you have hit enter, it is going to summarize all the changes. So to save the changes, go ahead and say save. Next, the storage object profile, configure a object storage profile. Configure, say yes. Oh yeah, so we will not be doing configuring the object store profile because we are not using the object store in our particular configuration here. We are going to use the block storage. So we will go ahead and say no to this. All right. So once this is done, we will go ahead and configure the storage or the disks that we have added, and then uh, create the file system for this DDV. Let's just go ahead and list all the devices. Let's go ahead now with configuring the storage node. So if you see the screen, I've already run the storage show all command. which shows that we have a disk which is available of capacity 500 gigs, and we also have a capacity license which is supporting 0.45 TIB, which is equivalent to 500 gigs. So let's go ahead and configure the disk now. Just before that, I want to show you the e-license license status for this. So if you can see the license status, you can see that the capacity feature enabled is 0.45 TIB, which is unexpired evaluation, and it is active. We also have replication, DD boost, retention log governance, and encryption, which is all active by default as part of this um, evaluation license. So you're going to use storage add tier active dev3, which is the disk that we had listed. So we're not going to use object store again. So what we will do is we will say yes, continue with block storage. So once it is checking the storage requirements, so this is done. So when you run the storage show all command again, you will see that there is one device that is added to the active tier. Now let's go ahead and create a file system by using the command file system create. A system of approximately size will be created. You say yes. It is going to take a few minutes. I'm going to pause the video here and get back to you when it is completed. Alright, so now our file system is created, but it is not enabled yet. So if you see the status, it is still disabled. So let's go ahead and enable the file system. Alright, now we have the file system enabled as well. If you see from the status, the file system is up and running. And if I check the capacity, I have a total capacity of 353 available for backups. So now you can use this to enable DD boost, configure a DD boost user, attach it or integrate it with any backup application of your choice. Before you go, let's go ahead and access this DDVE from the GUI from the browser. This is the IP address. So again, I'm using a public IP address because I don't have a jump host configured, but in production you would avoid using a public IP address. So sysadmin and the password, and there we are. So this is how you use the CLI to create a DDVE. Now, in a while, I'm going to show you how to deploy a DDVE using your Google Cloud Console. Let's get to it. So now let's see how we can create a DDVE using the GCP console. Even though we are going to use the console, the creation of the custom image still needs to be done using the CLI. So if you go to our images, you can see that we already have the custom image created here. So if you have skipped that part of the video, please go ahead and watch this video from the beginning where I show you how to create a custom image for your DDVE. So this is the custom image that we will be using for our creating the DDVE on the console. So go to your console, make sure that you have selected the correct project. Give your instance a name. I will be using DDVE demo. Select a region, South A, B, C, whichever you want. I'm going to select Asia South 1. Next, you have to select the machine type. So if you remember from the requirement, let me bring that up. Um, we need a 4-core 16 gig compute engine with 10 GB SSD persistent disk. The 250 GB standard persistent disk will be imported from the image. So let's select the rest of the configuration. So here we go and select custom. We need 4 CPUs and 16 gig of memory. Next, we go ahead and select the image. We click on change under the OS images. Click on custom image and then select our DDVE image. So if you can see, you have a standard persistent disk of 250 gigs. Select this, scroll down, select, okay, let's go ahead and click on management, security, networking, and so on. Click on disks first. Now we add a new disk for our NVRAM. So we call as NVRAM. Oops. NVRAM. It should be an SSD. Snapshot. Select the capacity. Somewhere here. Yeah, there we are. 10 gig capacity. Then we come down, select networking. So we're done with the disk. Next we go to networking. So you see that we have selected default, which we do not want. We will go ahead and select the VPC that we want. The subnet, so I have only one subnet which is selected by default, or depending on the location that you have selected. Primary IP address is ephemeral. The secondary external IP address, you have to select it as none, but I'm going to select it as ephemeral because I do not have a jump server to connect it to. Then say done and then click on create. Creating the DDVE is going to take a while, so I'm going to pause the video here and come back to you when the DDVE instance is completed. Alright, welcome back. So our DDVE instance is created. It is booting, it is getting ready. So meanwhile, what we will be doing is let's go ahead and add that 500 gig disk so that we have the capacity required. Click on edit, scroll down, add new disk, name the disk whatever you want to, standard persistent, capacity 500, and then you say done and save. Alright, now let's go ahead and log into the DDVE. do this, copy IP address. For me it is external, for you it'll be in the internal IP address, http colon slash slash. The DDVE actually takes some time to initialize, so if in case you're not able to connect, please wait for a while and then try to connect. Let me pause the video till the DDVE initializes and get back to you. Okay, looks like the DDVE is ready now, so let's go ahead and log into it. We use sysadmin and the default password, which is change me. So the first step is the licensing. So it is going to ask you if you want to use a pre-installed evaluation license, or if you want to add a new license file that you have got from EMC, or if you have a centralized license server that you want to use. For us, as you know, we will be using the evaluation license. Click on apply. So the maximum capacity that we will be allowed is 500 gigs. Accept the EULA. Next, we configure the network. Yes, we do want to configure the network. General information, obtain everything from the DMC, from the DHCP. So if you do want to configure anything manually, you can go ahead and do that. The host name, the domain name, as well as the IP address. So click next. Interfaces. So we have the IP being assigned using the DHCP, so we are going to keep it as DHCP for v4. So if you want to use manually, you can go ahead and say no to DHCP and put in the information manually. For us, it is going to be DHCP. Say next. DNS, again, it is going to pull that from the DHCP, but if you want to enter the DHCP manually, you can go ahead and do it here. Say next again, summary of all the information for network, click submit. Say OK. Next would be configuring your file system. So you want to configure the file system. So we have two options again, object store and persistent disk. So we will be using the block storage here because we are going to use the persistent disks. I will make another video for block the object storage as well, so stay tuned for that. Say next. We have already added one disk for to be used in the active tier, so let's go ahead and add that to the active tier. So we have a capacity available for 0.34 TB. Because of how DDVE works, only 340 gigs will be available out of the 500 GB that we have added. So let's go ahead and click next. So now our file system is the additional disk is added to the active tier. Let's go ahead and create a file system on that particular disk and then enable the file system. So all that options in this one page here. Click on submit. It's creating the file system now, and then it'll enable the file system. So this is going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to pause the video here. Alright, so the file system has been created and is enabled. Let's go ahead and say OK to finish this part of the configuration. Next would be the system settings. Say yes. We are here. We can um, change the sysadmin password from the default change me, with the password that everybody knows, to something that is known only to you. So let's go ahead and do that. The admin email. So the admin email will be used to send the alert notification, the daily summary emails, and the auto support. Let's go ahead and click on next. Here you are going to be given, you have to provide the SMTP information. So for me, I do not have any SMTPs. So I will not be configuring anything here, but you can go ahead and give your SMTP mail server name. If any credentials are to be applied, can enable it and put in this details here. You can put in the name of your location here, the location of your environment, then click next. It'll provide you the summary, and when you click submit, it is going to commit all these changes to the data domain configuration. Alright, so the system setting part is completed. Now the three options that you have, or the three configurations that you have, are all optional. Obviously, you would configure one of these, or at least the DD boost, if in case you're intending to use this with a backup application. mm, you can do the configuration here. So I'm going to quit at this particular point because the DD boost configuration is not in scope for this particular video. So if you go ahead and do a health check, data management, you will see how much capacity we have, and so on and so forth. I hope this video was helpful to my fellow backup administrators. You can always go ahead and try deploying a DDVE on GCP, which would be practically free of cost under the free tier. But make sure that you delete this configuration as soon as you create it, because if you are going to keep it for a while or a day or two, it might incur some cost to your billing account. I will be doing another video for the object storage option in DDVE.